Welcome to episode 43 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, pretty good.
So, a lot happened this week, and we're here to tell you all about it. We're live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. If you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. You can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. This week we've got games to talk about, ridiculous statements by players, commentators saying stupid things, and of course, wild predictions to make. So let's go ahead and dive right into our first segment of the night, our game of the week, 49ers at Saints. And I gotta say, um, I think the headline that summed up this game for me was uh, the Saints begged the 49ers to win and the 49ers politely decline. Um, so I want to go kind of through the flow of this game because there were actually this was a messy game. I thought both teams played fairly poorly, and one team just played more poorly than the other. Uh, and there were a lot of kind of crazy things that happened, a lot of momentum changing things. So I'm going to go through and kind of just do the bang bang, some scoring plays and some things that I thought were interesting, and then Joseph's going to interject whenever he thinks, whenever he wants to make a comment. So, um, uh, opening drive, helmet to helmet foul on Kendrick Bourne. Player was not ejected. I've been looking out for that throughout the season. It seems like the ejections have decreased, so maybe the refs are kind of shifting a little bit away from doing that. I've seen now 3 or 4 helmet to helmet spearing that have not resulted in an ejection. So just something to note that I find interesting. Um, and then the opening drive, the Niners marched down the field, burned like 7.5 minutes off the clock. Touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk. Great drive for the Niners. Nick Mullins looked solid. He looked in charge. The only flaw on that drive was Mullins had one throw that was almost picked off, but solid drive. So Niners go up 7-0. Then the Saints muff a punt, and the 49ers recover on the Saints half of the field. They drive down. The Saints get a stuff and then a sack, forcing a field goal. So the Niners go up 10-0. And at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. We're at like almost the end or at the end of the first quarter, and I'm thinking, you know what, the Niners are doing what they need to do to beat a team like the Saints at this rate. Um, but then, as I'm thinking that, of course, Deontay Harris on the next kickoff return, Deontay Harris returns it to the 49ers 25-yard line. So sets up the Saints in with great field position. Breeze has a couple of off throws, and they get to fourth down. They have to kick a field goal, 10-3. And then on the next drive was that ridiculous, and Joseph, I hope you remember this, that ridiculous one-handed catch by Jordan Reed.
Yes, by Reed. Yes, I have it in my notes here.
I don't think I've ever seen a catch quite like that. It it was thrown, it was a badly thrown ball. It was almost in the dirt, and he went down and like as he was running kind of scooped it up about half an inch off the ground. I don't know. Have you ever seen a catch like that before?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen some incredible catches up there, but in terms of the style,
Yeah, and
I
there's
don't
no
think I
way in
have.
the universe that someone could catch that without gloves. Like that was a crazy catch. Um but it was just short of the first down, so the 49ers punt. Um so then at this point we're like I think halfway through the second quarter, and the Saints decide to use Taysom Hill for the first time. He rushes for 5 yards. They end up using him a lot more in the second half, but they kind of waited to bring him in. Another thing that Joseph and I have talked about a lot is kind of when the Saints choose to activate him. Um, Now then I don't remember if this was the next drive or not, but Webster, who's a guy off the practice squad for the Niners, decides to let a punt bounce off of his helmet and turns it over to the Saints. The Saints get the ball back at like the 21. And then we have one of the worst moments in the game, which brought back horrible memories from the 2012 season. The Niners actually lost home field advantage because of this play. For those 49er fans that are listening, the Ahmad Brooks sack that was called a roughing the passer of Drew Brees. Well, we got another one of those, except this was even more blatantly bad. So Contavious Street sacks Brees, but it's called a foul because the thought is that because he landed on him with his body weight. But if you watch the replays and you listen to Gene Steratore and some of the other guys talk as they show the replay, he lands on the side. He did not land. Yes.
Yeah, can I interject? Yeah, no, I agree with you. In my notes here, I say, you know what? Drew Brees got hit hard. That was probably the play where he fractured his ribs and punctured a lung, apparently. Which amazingly, they're saying he might be back in a few weeks. How do you fracture a rib and puncture a lung?
Especially when you're 40
back in a few
too.
Weeks? I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know.
Especially, but then like you like another leg injury and you're out for 6 months. So I don't understand how that happens, but I don't want to find out either. But I think what caused thoughts on that one, the reason why that really hurts isn't because Street hit him hard. It's because he hit him, and it wasn't on purpose, obviously. I hope not. I don't think it was. Into his offensive lineman. So his offensive line, think about it, like just six-wise. Street comes in and hits him, right? But he's moving in that same direction and knocks Brees with him. They're carried together. That's not going to cause too much pain until they get to the ground. And then Brees runs straight into a stationary offensive lineman set, right? A 300-pound guy that's set. That's where the pain came from. It's not getting hit by the car slowly that's going to hurt you necessarily, but it's the brick wall it pins you into that's going to hurt. So, when he came down, and honestly, I put my notes here. I think it was called a foul because it's Brees. Like the guy team, but that wasn't a personal foul. I think that one because it was a late throw. It took him a few seconds to throw the flag. It wasn't immediate. And I think it was he got hit pretty hard and he's on the ground and we're in New Orleans and let's throw a flag. I'm kind of leaning towards that, to be honest.
If that's true, that referee should never see the field again.
True, and there's another play that wasn't called, but not as bad.
I think I know what you're talking about. Okay, so then there's a Alvin Kamara rushing touchdown, ties the game 10-10. And then the Niners decide with 1:55 left in the first half to go for it on fourth down at the Saints 45-yard line, which I actually thought it was the right call to go for it. But then they just decide to run right up the A gap. And of course, the Saints had 6 guys in the box. The running back is stuffed, and the Saints take over with 1:50 left and 2 timeouts. It's just a horrendous play call. I don't know what Shanahan was thinking. And then there was I think it was I don't remember if it was a pass or if it was a running play, but Jimmy Ward knocks the ball out of Traquan Smith, and that was a foul that was not called. Is that the one that you're thinking of? It was.
No, I think it was before that, actually.
Okay.
Let's go to the one before. It was I think there was a missed taunting call on Kamara when he had that really long run along the side. And towards the end, one of the Niners is getting blocked and kind of falls down. And Kamara just like kind of slowly walks to him and tosses the ball, his flipped wrist over the guy's head. And I was like, that was taunting. So I think it wasn't egregious, but I think it would have been reasonable if Kamara got called.
Okay, I think I missed that, but sure. Yeah, I trust you.
But yes, the Traquan Smith hit, dude, that
It was,
was
and it's really
scary
surprising that
because
that
he
was
got hit
missed
twice.
because it seemed pretty obvious.
Yeah, that
But instead of being a fumble, it was called incomplete because there wasn't a football move. So it didn't result in. It wasn't like the Niners got the ball back. It was just an incomplete pass. But it should have been called a personal foul. Um, and then on that drive, Breeze just wide open. Kamara waltzes into the right side of the end zone. And it was actually Breeze fumbled, picks up the ball, and then tosses it to Kamara in the end zone. So the Saints are up 17-10. That's halftime. The Saints were up 17-10. Yeah,
Oh,
go for it.
did I have a comment before halftime? My quote here is Nick Mullins needs to chill about the fake penalty he wanted after getting quote unquote hits.
Oh yeah,
After
I saw that.
sliding on
I
the
laughed
run.
about that. I was like,
That is
"Come on, dude. That was like you're desperately begging for a foul when there was nothing there."
and then I finish here. That is why
Yeah,
we need
I
to abolish that
completely
stupid
agree with you.
rule, because
That was embarrassing. I'm embarrassed as a 49er fan. Um so then on the opening possession of the second half, the Saints had the ball. Niners caused a 3-and-out. Saints punt. And then I think is it Malcolm Jenkins or Janoris Jenkins? I get those guys mixed up. The corner for
Ooh,
the Saints
yes, the Saints
intercepted
guys. Yeah,
Mullins on the Saints.
he didn't see him. It was like that one throw against the Eagles where that was the most wide open interception ever. This might take
Yeah, the
running
guy
for him.
was right there. It was like he wasn't even. I think maybe the throw was. Maybe he thought the throw was going to be higher or something. I don't know, but the guy, it didn't seem like he saw him, and it was an easy pick. Saints get it on their half of the field, and then the 49ers force a punt on that drive after Javon Kinlaw's first sack of the season. So he the rookie defensive lineman that kind of they drafted to replace DeForest Buckner. He got his first sack and a half in this game actually. So that was exciting to see that. And then crazy the next drive that the Saints had, the Niners in the red zone. The Niners forced back-to-back fourth downs, but the first one was erased because Fred Warner got a face mask, and you could see on his face right after you knew he did it, and he blew it. But then there were back-to-back sacks, and the Niners forced a field goal. So at this point, the Saints were up 20-10, and I had pretty much given up at this point because of the Niners' offense had seemed to completely sputter out at this point. So I wasn't really expecting them to do anything, but was hopeful. And then Jimmy Ward missed an easy interception. And then right after that,
By the way, where are you? Where are you in the time?
I think this is like
time wise.
late third quarter or maybe early fourth quarter. Okay, yeah,
Okay,
go
I
for
have
it.
two comments to make before my last for my last fourth quarter comment. First of all, how hilarious was that quote unquote sack on Mullins where he basically
Oh, that
just
was
fell
ridiculous.
over and lost his balance. I don't even. I mean, technically, fine, you called a sack, but not really. Like basically, the defender just like.
Yeah, it was
No,
like when you. It
no
was like when
thinking on
you're
him.
walking
And
down a
then
busy
Mullins-
street and you barely brush up against someone. It was like that.
Yeah, yeah, and then Mullins just lost his balance and just fell backwards. And then not the Rams, the Niners did something that Jeremy knows would have frustrated me. You know, they're down by 7 late in the third and 16. Let's hand
Oh,
the
I
ball
know. I
off up
hate
the
that
middle,
so much.
and then
Yeah,
punts from our
it's
near end
clear.
zone.
It's
So
clear that Shanahan does not trust any of his quarterbacks right now, and that play is tells you everything you need to know. So yeah,
that's all I have.
okay, that was going to be the next thing. Was so Jimmy Ward on the play where the Saints punt and Richie James fumbles. Jimmy Ward missed on that drive. Jimmy Ward missed an easy interception. So then Saints punt. Richie James fumbles at the 20. Yeah.
That was the nail in the coffin.
And then Saints get a rushing touchdown, Kamara's second touchdown. Saints up 27-13. And then so one more spark of hope was Taysom Hill fumbles, Niners recover with 3:13 left in the fourth quarter. And they actually were like driving down, doing pretty well. And then, of course, Nick Mullins throws an interception to Lattimore in the end zone, and that ended the game. I don't think they would have won even if they had gotten the touchdown, but at least they could have had an onside kick attempt and etc. So that was just, the 49ers, CJ Gardner-Johnson apparently was invisible to the offensive staff because he just ruined every running play. It seemed like the Niners rushing game was horrible. They struggled to pick up the blitz. Nick Mullins couldn't see the field or see any of the guys on the line. There were a lot of penalties in crucial situations in that game for both teams. And the Niners run blocking was just terrible. So a messy game for the Niners that they deserved to lose, even though it was a game that they should have won based on the way that the Saints were playing. And I place 100% of the blame on the offense and 0% of the blame on the defense. I thought the defense actually held up pretty well considering what they were given. Okay, so let's jump into our second game. Go for it.
I have some general comments. Yeah, so Mullins was okay for a backup, but obviously they want a healthy Jimmy. How about Winston? Dude, like he lost a ton of weight.
Yeah, he did look thinner. Winston?
Yeah, and then NFC South is now interesting. Saints weren't necessarily sluggish, but a little inconsistent. Big win for the NFC South. It'll be interesting because the Bucs have similar issues with consistency. And I was looking at this. The Packers, Saints, and Bucs, so the Bucs are likely. They all have a reasonable-ish chance to go 12-4. But the tiebreakers are because Saints beat the Bucs twice, but the Packers beat the Saints. But I think the Bucs beat the Packers. So really interesting. I think the Packers would get it because they probably would do a tiebreak in the division first to eliminate the Bucs, and then the Packers get it. But really interesting. A big win for the Saints because now they can go 12-4 actually reasonably. And we'll see who gets the
I'm
bye.
A little hesitant to think that they'll go 12-4 just because with Breeze out for a few weeks, they don't. Jameis Winston is not necessarily who you want at the helm to drive you for a big chunk of the remainder of the season. I think that game showed that Taysom Hill is not. He is not the guy that you want under center. But Winston is going to throw interceptions. And we did see last year with Bridgewater that he held the deck for 5 games while Breeze was out. So maybe they can do it. They have a pretty good defense, so maybe they can do it. I think 12-4 might be a little bit of a stretch, but we'll see. It could happen. All right. Bills at Cardinals. So why don't you start off with this one, Joseph? Another exciting game.
Yeah, I mean, even though it was very exciting, it was very good back and forth. I won't have too much to say, but it was a very balanced game. I guess I'll start off. Just want to talk about the quarterbacks and talk about the play that everyone wants to talk about. So both quarterbacks, looked good. Josh Allen, some of his throws and his pocket presence, he really reminded me of Tom Brady. That last drive he had and that throw to Stephon Diggs was just amazing. I mean, the placements. He's made several great throws, and his improvement over the past couple of years is astonishing. I mean, he might have some of the in terms of like his initial starting point, not only in terms of the delta of improvements, but like the objective endpoint of his improvements. It might be one of the best in league history, in my opinion, over the past couple of years. Yeah, it's really impressive. Looking forward to seeing the Bills be leaders of the AFC East for many years to come. And then Kyler Murray. We did not include him in the race. He does have a lot of interceptions, but I was looking at his stats and what he's projected to get, and I was like, wow, how did we not include Murray? So Murray is on pace. So for total yards, for total rushing and passing yards, he's on pace for over 5,000 total yards and like 50 total touchdowns. And missed that. but Murray has a good arm. Murray's also really improved. He has a good arm. He's fairly accurate. Scrambles really well. He's not as fast as Lamar Jackson, but he is fast enough, and he scrambles really well, really smart, and he's going to keep improving. And they have a good receiver core, so just exciting to see the quarterback play. I know Jeremy and I mentioned, I remember us talking a couple years ago. We've had this talk many times, but I think after Peyton left, we were realizing that Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, even Matt Ryan were kind of towards the end of their careers and what the league will look like in a few years. At the time we were kind of talking about Cam Newton a little bit because that was close after his really good 2015 campaign. But now it's pretty exciting. Like, yes, Russell Wilson's playing amazing. Hard to admit, but he is. Now we have Murray and Allen. Who knows if Tua is going to show up? And then, obviously Jackson's in the background. And seeing all these young quarterbacks and that the league is not in disarray. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mahomes playing like a Hall of Famer. So just to know that the league is not in disarray because we came off a great, 15, 20-year era of all these quarterbacks. And the next 10 years look pretty good with who we have right now. So I'll let Jeremy comment on that, and then I'll take it back to Hopkins Hail Mary, or shall I say, Hail Mary.
Crickets. I don't have any comment besides you forgot to mention Nick Foles.
So yeah, even though if the Dolphins win this week, we'd be tied for the lead in the AFC East, the Bills in the division, which is crazy. I was still rooting for the Bills. Though I'm kind of okay with the Cardinals win. I'm kind of developing a soft spot for the Cardinals now. But how disappointing that last throw and that the defense that was played. I mean, it reminds me of that crazy Hail Mary that Rodgers had against the Lions years ago. I mean, it was insane. And someone had done, I didn't look too much into it, but someone had done like an in-depth analysis on like a defensive scheme that could like basically perfectly defend against a Hail Mary like that. And I just thought of that with this play is, what were the Bills doing? Like, how do you give up that play? So let's just walk through it. So they had no timeouts left. Okay, no timeouts left. 11 seconds. The Bills rushed 4. Okay, that's not a terrible idea. It's not a problem. But so let's start there. Why rush anyone? Right? I mean, because if they get a play done in the center, they have to get out of bounds. If they don't get out of bounds, the game is done. And unless you're afraid that Murray's going to run past the 11 guys that are going to be scattered throughout the field, you're going to contain him, and they're not going to win. Okay, they rush 4, somewhat orthodox. That's okay. So he's scrambling around, and what got really disappointing is once he's scrambling around for a few seconds, this is the last play of the game. There is no quick throw out to the edge, the sideline, and then he's out of bounds, and then you go. It's the last play of the game, and the defender
unless just quick comment, unless he throws it away.
But there's the thing though, if you defend like it is the last play of the game,
sure,
him throwing it away is arbitrary, because then but that is true. So there were wide receivers that were near the beginning of the red zone with Bills covering them. It's like, that's much pointless. You can always it's like in baseball, right? Your first step should be backwards. You can come forwards. Back up and be ready for the end zone. So that was, and then he throws it, and then it was an incredible catch, right? Hopkins got in the perfect position. It wasn't like it was a great throw. He just kind of threw it up there. Hopkins got in a perfect position that once he jumped, the ball basically just landed in his hand. And it's a pretty amazing and crazy how the Bills couldn't block it. But what I'm upset about is the selection of players that you put out there. They had their corners. All those guys were small. You should have your most. I mean, even for the rushing, like the 4 rushers, your 4 rushers should be cornerbacks, right? Because you're not worried. You're worried he's going to run. You want your quick, fast guys, and it's a lot harder to block a small, quick guy. So then you might get an offensive holding. I know it's unconventional, but in that kind of play, you should rush 3 or 4 corners, not defensive ends, and then you put your tallest, most athletic, you put your tight ends and your wide receivers in the end zone to defend a Hail Mary, not your cornerbacks. So it just was terrible execution, and I'm sick of the lack of creativity for these unique plays, because people think that it's proper to do what's basic, but it's not. When it's a Hail Mary play, you shouldn't be thinking more orthodox. So I wanted the Bills to win, but glad the Cardinals won. It was crazy, awesome catch by Hopkins. That's great. So we are going to kind of rip what he said with something else later in a minute. But disappointed in the Bills' defensive execution, and people should be looking into better schemes to defend Hail Marys because there's no excuse there.
I think that who's the Bills? I guess it would be their defensive coordinator. So I doubt you and I know him, but
no.
I just genuinely think they didn't think that was the last play. And that doesn't excuse the fact that they didn't have the right guys in the end zone to protect, but I just think they didn't think it was the last play. Based on the couple of plays before that where Murray was kind of trying to get chunk yards, it didn't feel like it was supposed to be the last play, and it definitely was not. Like the Murray chucking it in the end zone on that play was not the play call for that play, right? He made something happen that was not what was supposed to happen. So, because you could tell by the way he was running for his life that he was like, "Oh crap, my reads are not here. What do I do?" And then I think he probably saw Hopkins getting in position, and he's like, "Well, you know what? It's either this play or the next play. I'm going to try to see if we have a chance to make something happen," and made that all of those decisions in like half of a second or less. So I think you can sort of soften the blow against the Bills a little bit by saying that, but I agree with you that they should have had more guys protecting that play. Although it is still pretty ridiculous. They had 3 guys there, and none of them could come down with the ball or bat it away. So
now it is crazy. This does have, before we move on, it does have some pretty huge implications though, because the Steelers are 9-0, and the Dolphins play the Bills in the last week, which could be a play for the AFC East title, and the Bills still play the Steelers. So the Bills not only, in good reason, just lost their chance at a bye. It is now more in the Dolphins' destiny to win the division. So it'd be crazy if the Bills don't even get the division, and this would be a key game for them.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it may end up coming down to the Bills-Dolphins game.
Yeah, I think it will. It could easily. I was looking at both schedules, and yeah.
You guys got to beat those Broncos this week, though.
Yes, we do.
If you guys lose to the Broncos, I don't think you're going to be able to catch up. So this is a must-win as far as winning the division is concerned. So I just wanted to make one other comment before we go on to our next segment, which was, talk about those kickers, man. So both Tyler Bass, the Bass-O-Matic, did you hear that?
I did, yeah.
So he kicked 2 field goals over 50. So together, both Tyler Bass and Zane Gonzalez for the Cardinals, 7 out of 7 field goals, 5 out of 5 extra points, and Tyler Bass 2 field goals over 50 yards with plenty of juice to spare to go further. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw both kickers on both teams be so on point and powerful in a game. There was one kick that was the commentator called Doink and Through, the one that hit the side and then went in.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was fun. Just watching, whenever you see kicks like that are pretty epic. All right, so our next segment is Who Wrecked Face this week, not brought to you by any quarterbacks. So Joseph has some for the rushing, and then I'll do the receivers and defensive.
Yeah, kind of surprising, no quarterbacks. So first up is Ronald Jones, second, for Tampa Bay. 23 carries, 192 yards. That's an 8.3 average, and a touchdown, a 98-yard touchdown. Which, even if you take out the 98-yard touchdown, that's still 22 carries for almost 100 yards, which is still pretty good. So, as an outlier. And then Cleveland rushing team, they had 2 100-yard rushers with a 5.5 average or higher. So the Cleveland as a team, 231 rushing yards on a 5.6 average and a rushing touchdown. And then the Raiders, 203 rushing yards, 5 average, 4 rushing touchdowns. Can't remember the last time a 4 rushing touchdown performance by a team. That's pretty impressive.
Can you believe that the Browns had 231 rushing yards, averaging 5.6 yards a carry, had no turnovers, and scored 10 points? I mean, I don't even know how that's how to be so dominant on the ground and not score more than that.
Yeah. Baker
He was
Mayfield
12
was
for
that
20
irrelevant.
for 132 yards. No touchdowns, no picks. Wow, that's crazy. All right, so wide receivers. So DeAndre Hopkins, his stat line was 7 receptions for 12 targets on 127 yards and a touchdown, but the real reason he's on here is because of that absurd Hail Mary play. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling for the Packers had 4 receptions on 6 targets, 149 yards, 1 touchdown of 78 yards, and he did that against the Jaguars. They were my thank you, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, because the Packers were my eliminator pick this last week, and I almost lost.
Same here, man. I think 44% of people picked them for elimination.
That would have been a lot of people screwed if it hadn't been for Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Last 2 are defensive players, so check this out. Jamie Collins Sr., linebacker for Detroit, 13 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. And Alex Singleton, linebacker for the Eagles, 16 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. So some great, outstanding defensive play this week. So let's move into our story for the week. And this is, we've been talking about DeAndre Hopkins a lot tonight, and we're going to keep talking about him. So ESPN wrote an article on a comment that DeAndre Hopkins made. And Joseph, do you want to take this one, or? Okay, so
go ahead.
The headline of the article is Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins says receivers should get counted yards for pass interference. Okay, so this article was from is in reference to a comment that Hopkins made after the Dolphins Cardinals game that the Dolphins won, right? Okay. So in that game there were 4 penalties against Dolphins cornerback Xavier Howard, my least of the game for that week, and 3 of them were accepted. And Hopkins said, as long as the ball moves, that's all I care about. And he had 3 catches for 30 yards. And then he said, so while he was pleased that the penalties helped the Cardinals' offense move down the field, Hopkins thinks they should benefit the receivers as well. I do think that the rules should change, Hopkins said, and receivers should get counted yards for penalties. And he says, I was very happy, even though we didn't win. That's probably the only thing I was mad about, but not my catches or completions. When a guy has to hold you when a ball is being thrown your way every time, I think that's a sign of respect. So, basically, if you're confused about what he's saying, it means that he thinks that if there's let's say the receiver goes down, there's a 30-yard pass, and nobody catches it, there's a pass interference call, that the receiver should be credited for those 30 yards. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking of all of the logical implications of this.
Yeah, kind of scary, huh?
How it unravels. Crazy mess.
Let's peel this onion.
Let's do it. Okay. So then, guys, Stone, we give him
That's
touchdowns?
The first thing I thought of.
How about this? How about this? Does he think this when he's in the running for most receiving yards in a season? But then someone beats him because they had more penalty yards. Do we give him receptions? Because then what's the point of calling it a penalty? Because how can you, in terms of a play and the box score, you can't call one play as a penalty and a reception at the same time. And then does the quarterback get the yards as well, passing yards? I mean, does a person who intercepts the ball, but another defender on a team did defensive holding, which nullifies it, I'm pretty sure, does he still get the interception? I mean, this is insane. I mean, to me, it's a good parallel. It's like in basketball. When you foul the guy, yeah, you can hack a guy, right? And you foul him like crazy. But he still has to take his 2 shots for the shot that he could have made, even if it was an easy shot. So yeah, this is a terrible idea. Now, maybe what happens is players on defense, there's a better penalty for how many bad plays they can get. Parallel basketball, but I don't think that's needed because they still get the yards. See, it's different with basketball because you don't get the points. But in football, like on those PIs, still get the ball at the spot. If it does everything for your team, you just don't get credit for it, and you shouldn't because there's no guarantee you're going to catch it anyways. Like it's absurd to think that you're going to make the catch every single time and you should get yards. So it's overall it's crazy. At the end here, it says most PIs or downfield, which is 20, 30-yard play, and we consider those explosive plays, which explosive plays wins games. Yeah, and when it's a PI, get the ball at the spot, so it functionally behaves like an explosive play. Just don't get credit for it. That's redundant.
So I think, just fundamentally, philosophically, a sport loses integrity as soon as you give credit for something that would have happened without it actually happening. The whole point of sports is for guys to go out on a field and perform and make things happen, right? And the referee is there to make sure that what they're doing falls within the rules. And the stats are there to reflect the performance of the players. But you can't give someone credit for something that they didn't do. Because like you said, even if there was no defender there, say, we don't know for sure that DeAndre Hopkins would have caught that ball. You can't give credit for something that may have happened or may not have happened. So that's my biggest thing is you just break sports as soon as you do that, because then it becomes about like mathematically what should have happened versus what players actually do. And then, of course, Joseph pointed out all of the logical inconsistencies of like, okay, so do we count plays as touchdowns now? Do you give things to the other team that they didn't actually perform? So yeah, there's just kind of a ridiculous comment. And also, like, who cares if the receiver doesn't get credit for the yards? The team gets the 30 yards and gets in position to keep driving. And that's what matters. Like, ultimately, what matters is the team like taking advantage of a penalty and performing well, not whether some receiver gets more yards in the box score. It's just selfish, basically. I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of stupid. So that was a great article. Joseph found that one, and I enjoy ripping that kind of stuff to shreds. It's fun. Okay, so our next segment is commentators say the darndest things. And again, in the Jaguars at Packers game, which I was watching because I was nervous that I was not going to get my eliminator pick, one of the guys said, if you want to be elite, you have to show up. And then in the Bills-Cardinals game, I was watching online and there was a comment thread rolling, and one of the guys said, this was actually funny thing. This was actually, I was watching the Niners Saints game, which was concurrent with the Bills Cardinals game, but people could comment on any game. So there was a guy commenting about Bills Arizona, and this game, keep in mind, this game was played at the Cardinals Stadium. The guy said, the reason Arizona doesn't draw crowds is because Murray is only 5'9". If he was at least 6 feet, the stadium would be packed.
Oh my gosh. You know what? That's so dumb. I don't even think it warrants my comment.
I thought you'd say something like that. There were plenty of dumb comments, but that one really stood out because the guy, you could tell that the guy really like thought he was making a deep, thoughtful comment about the situation. just wrong on so many levels.
And I have one. It's just YouTube comments. But it's worth it because it's about. So it was on a replay of Hopkins' Hail Mary catch. The comment says, Arizona is about to make Bill O'Brien their state mascot. And Bill O'Brien, those who don't know, was the former Texans head coach who traded away Hopkins to Arizona.
So that's, I mean, that's so true. We talked about this a few weeks ago, but the DeAndre Hopkins trade is so far going down as one of the worst trades in years. Like, I don't even remember the last time a trade was as bad for a team as that one.
Oh, dude, him and Murray, they could be together for years. Like, this could be something. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. And also, the Dolphins get, I think, a first round and a second round pick from the Texans. At least the first round, maybe the second round as well. And those picks are contingent on where they finish. So the Dolphins are going to get like no worse than like a top 7 or 8 pick in the first round, in addition to their other first round pick.
Oh, and that's because of the Tunsil trade, right?
Yes. So, man, things are looking good.
Yeah, what a disaster for the Texans. That's just terrible.
They might implode. They might. I mean, but they can't though because Watson signed that huge contract. So yeah, this is going to be crazy. But
what's worse, having a star quarterback? Well, having a good young quarterback that's capable of going far with a team imploding around him, or a team that is, struggling and going nowhere without your franchise quarterback.
Ooh,
So food for thought. Maybe we'll touch that again next week. All right, so our final segment of the night is our predictions. So tricky picks this last week was I was 2-1, Joseph was 1-2, so we're now tied at 16, 13, and 2 on the season, which is 55% apiece. So Joseph, what are our tricky picks for week 11.
If you don't mind talking for like 20, 30 seconds, so there's no dead time, I actually need to make my picks first before I
Sure.
say them
So
because I kind
I'll
of
just keep
forgot.
talking
So
about the comment I made about the quarterback. So just let me know when you're ready with your pick. So I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that the Texans situation is uh I think I'd rather have a young franchise quarterback with a surrounding cast that has imploded if you grant that they have the right GM and sufficient draft capital for the next couple of years, 2 to 3 years, to rebuild. Because I think everybody says this, and this is makes sense because we always talk about how MVPs are frequently quarterbacks because quarterbacks just are the central cog in the machine of a football team, and if you have a good quarterback, it can absolve a lot of sins. And so I think that I would rather be in the position of the Texans to have Deshaun Watson and then have to rebuild around him than a team like, I don't know, the Bears, who have a good defense but a
yeah.
quarterback, a situation that is far from resolved, and you're in the mud because of it, right. The Packers or the Bears are 5-5 now, and the only reason they're not 9-1 is because their quarterback situation is awful. The defense is incredibly good.
I'm ready, by the
They
way.
might end up being the best scoring defense at the end of the year. They are phenomenal, but they just can't. Their offense can't move the ball. So ask yourself: would you rather be the Texans or would you rather be the Bears right now? I don't know. Think about it.
Yeah, I think I just comment before we go on. I think I would want to be the Texans because in the specific context of the fact that Watson had signed his contract, so that at least there's an incentive. If he was going to be a free agent or a possibility of a trade or whatever, I'd be scared as a Texans fan because then you're not only entering rebuild mode, going into rebuild mode with no franchise quarterback. At least there's some hope, maybe right the ship with the next year or two and get back on the right path. You still have Watson, but yeah, Bears are interesting story. All right, so tricky pick. So first one, Rams at Bucks. Will Brady be stacked or more times?
Yes.
No. All right, same. Tennessee at Baltimore. Okay. Henry's total yards versus Jackson's rushing yards plus rushing attempts plus passing attempts. Current context so far on the season, Henry is at about 115 total yards per game, and Jackson is about 96 for those things combined. The only other context is Jackson may want to be more active this game, and the Baltimore has a good defense who may stop Henry's. So
So this is it's passing attempts plus rushing attempts plus rushing yards.
plus rushing yards versus Henry's total yards, and right now Henry has about a 20
I'm gonna
advantage per game.
say I'm gonna say Henry.
Okay, I went Jackson. I feel like he's going to want to have a big game. But if Henry has any kind of big game, there's no way Jackson can do
You
this unless he
play to
rushes for like
win
100
the
yards.
game.
This next one, I think I overcomplicated this one, so I'll just say the easy parts and I'll let us pick, and then I'll work through what I was thinking about more. Will Mahomes? So what I'll do, Jeremy, is I'll say it. I'll give you a conditional pick, meaning I'll let you pick off your guts, and then I'll give the context. If you want to change it, you can, but it's easier to explain that way. So, will Mahomes have at least two of the following in the game against the Raiders: 300 plus passing yards, 3+ passing touchdowns, and 67% completion percentage?
Yes.
All right, I'm going the same. So here's here's what I'm thinking: is he? They've played 9 games, and his season averages are 298.6 yards per game, 66.9%, and 2.78 touchdowns. So his season averages are just below all those three. But um, he had 5 games of 300 or more yards, 4 games of 67, and 4 games of 3 touchdowns or more. He's had 2 instances of all 3 of those happening at the same time, and 4 with 2 of them happening at the same time. So like just under a 50% chance based on his current stats. This is a yes.
Yeah,
So do you want to
division
stay with
games can
yes or
be
want to change to a
funky, and
no?
the Raiders did beat them the first time, but I think uh, I think he can pull off 2 of those 3.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
That's our turkey
All
picks.
right, so as far as games are concerned, Joseph and I were both 9-5 this last week. So I remain 7 games up. I'm 145-1 at 69%, and Joseph is 93-52-1 at 64.1%. So last week we had, the reason that we were tied is because last week we differed on 4 games, but Texans, Browns, Eagles at Giants, Seahawks at Rams, Vikings at Bears. I got the Browns and Rams games correct, and Joseph got the Eagles and Bears games correct. So we split those, so we're locked even on last week's picks. So at this rate, Joseph's going to have to start winning like 1.5 games a week or so to catch up. So,
well, this next week, here's the thing. This next pick right now, bro, I think we're going to be different by like 1 or different by like 6.
you're going to have
This
to
is a
earn
crazy
calling
week.
me bro if I beat you by this much. Okay, so let's see how much we differ on this week. So I'll start with the first pick, and then we'll alternate. So first pick, Cardinals at Seahawks. I'm going Cardinals.
Same here. Eagles at Browns, just ferocious
Same.
stuff. I'm going Browns,
And
though.
felt the same. Falcons at Saints. I'm going Falcons. Oh, okay.
Same.
Yep.
Probably for the same reasons that you're going Falcons. Bengals at Washington. Ring,
Yep.
ring. Game of the week right here.
Same.
But I'm going Bengals.
Lions at Panthers. This another gross game. I'm going Panthers.
So I literally made my pick about 2 seconds before you did because this is another terrible one. I'm going Panthers as well. Steelers at Jacksonville. Steelers.
Yeah.
If they can't win this one,
Same.
well,
Same. I'm picking Steelers. Titans at Ravens. This is a tough one, but I went with Ravens.
Same. I also just made my pick seconds before you did because that in the Carolina games I didn't pick until just before. So also going Baltimore. New England at Houston. This might be worse than the Browns Eagles game. I think Houston will bounce back, and I don't have enough faith in the Patriots. But this is a toss up. This is literally a 50-50.
Dude, same. I'm going Texans for the same reasons. Dolphins at Broncos. I smell something fishy with this game, but I don't believe in the Broncos, so I'm going Dolphins.
Dolphins. Jets, Chargers. I mean, talk about competition of worst game of the week. But
I don't think there's really
Jets,
competition. I mean, I think this is pretty clearly the worst game of the week.
I think Bengals.
Maybe we'll see.
But at this point, the Jets are looking like they're going to keep their perfect season going, and I think the Chargers have enough.
Same.
The Chargers.
If the Jets are going to win a game this year, it will be this week. So if your eliminator is Chargers, which I think I have a friend whose eliminator is Chargers, then just be prepared for a potential upset. Packers at Colts. I'm going Packers.
Same. Dallas at Vikings. Vikings starting to turn around a little bit. Wish they did that a few weeks ago because they actually could have made the playoffs. It's gonna be tough. So they do have an inside shot at 9-7 at their schedule, but I don't know if 9-7 will do it.
Same.
So we'll see. But I'm going Vikings.
And then Chiefs at Raiders. I'm going Chiefs.
Going Chiefs as well. And then Rams,
Same.
Bucks, going Bucks. Okay, or we can have one pick, in the case of 0. Okay, well, we might as well not care about the pick.
I think we were just on the same wavelength this week as far as thinking about, because some of these games were definitely, some of these picks were against convention, like the Falcons Saints is a good example of that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, so we're either both going to soar or both spend the night in a dumpster that's on fire. So we'll see.
This might be. When's the last time we picked the same? Usually, there's always.
Yeah,
at
I
least
can't.
one.
I can't remember the last time we had all of them the same. That has not happened for a while. I don't think it's happened this year. There's 4 teams on buys this week: Bills, Bears, Giants, and 49ers, who desperately need it. They're going to get some guys back for their next game against the Rams, which will definitively determine whether the Niners are going to make the playoffs. Or I should say whether they even have a chance. Our game of the week is Packers at Colts. And then we did talk about, we don't usually talk about the highlight game in advance, and we're not deciding this for sure, but Joseph and I talked before the show about how the fact that we did the Cardinals and Seahawks as game of the week a few weeks ago, but then we didn't do the show the next week, so we never talked about it. So we're considering doing Cardinals Seahawks as our highlight game for next week, but we'll see how the other games play out, and then we'll decide and let you guys know next week. So that's it. That's a wrap for our show tonight. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and at The Practice Squad, and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. The show is online immediately after we go live, so if you missed any of our foolish banter, you can always rewind and start from the beginning. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.